Thanks for staying with us here on Today. Let's go back to that story in Durban now, where our reporter Lethiwe Mdluli is standing by to bring us the very latest on that plight of those affected by those floods in KZN. It really seems like a lifetime ago. It's a few months where these people, Lethiwe, have really had to put their lives on hold, not knowing where they'd be able to spend a night to have a good night's sleep. And this Transnet building in Montclair has become home for now because they say they've got no other options. What were you able to observe the last time you visited that building in terms of how these people are living and what is being planned for them?
Well, Marcel, it's been exactly 4 months after the floods, and most of the people that lost their homes during those floods were placed in community halls in various places across the province, especially here in Durban. And 6,000 people were left displaced following the floods. Now, some of those people who were placed in community halls were complaining about the fact that the halls were overcrowded and that also that they needed some privacy so that they can have a decent place where they can cook, their children can actually study. So some of those victims, of course, invaded the Transnet building in Montclair about 2 weeks ago, and they found a place that did not have any tenants at that place. Of course, it was an illegal act that they were doing. They were aware of that, but they did say that they wanted answers from government because there were promises made since April that flood victims will be moved from these places, but they haven't received any answers. So some of the victims, more than 400 of them, took it upon themselves and they invaded this Transnet building in Montclair, and there they had running water, hot water, they had beds, and they had separate rooms. So what they have been saying is that they just needed that, a safe place where they'll wait out, where the government will then provide them with proper answers as to when they will be moved from these community halls. But unfortunately, they have been evicted from that place. They were evicted on Monday. And catching up with some of the flood victims a bit earlier on, they told me how it was an unplanned eviction for them. They weren't told that they were going to be evicted on Monday, and it caught them by surprise. They then had to go back to the community halls that they had been previously staying in. And unfortunately, some victims were chased away, and they had to spend 2 nights outside. Mind you, it was raining on Monday and Tuesday. So majority of those people that were in those community halls had to spend those 2 nights outside in the cold, and some of them have young children. We actually spoke to a woman who has a 2-week-old baby, and she was sharing how cold it was and she had to sleep outside. While catching up with some of the victims a bit earlier on, I spoke to Olile, who speaks on behalf of the victims, and this is what she had to say about what they faced on Monday.
Abantu bakhishole ngaphandle neimpahla zabo. So mase kufika ummeli ebanikeze letter kwathiwa ilethe ifike late ubona. So kwase sesiphumile kwakusangabi nawo ummeli nawe angabi nayo choice, sazama ukuthi basifunele ama truck ukuthi sibuyele endaweni zethu. Okusiphathe kabuhlungu kakhulu thina la Yellowwood sithe masifika la besihlala khona ehall sangaphatheka kahle ngoba sigcine sisabantu abalala eminyango singavulelwa ngaphakathi. Ilokho kusiphathe kakhulu kabuhlungu kuze kwangenelela amaphoyisa nabantu baka disaster emini singenela ngaphakathi ngo2. Office lokho sifikile ubusuku bonke silele eminyango sivalelwa abantu abahlala la ngaphakathi bethi abasasifuni ukuthi sibuyele ngaphakathi abaphephile. Sinalo ithemba lokuthi icase ingahamba kahle. Mayihambile kahle icase siyathanda ukuthi uhulumeni asikwazi ukuthi sihlale endaweni engcono. Silindele khona impendulo zethu ukuthi usikhipha nini la emahall. Ngoba sisathanda ukulindela la ehall akusiyona indawo eright le phelile 4 months ngihleli la ayikho impendulo saye city hall asitholanga impendulo sihambile seku Mr Mavundla wasithembisa 48 hours owenze 48 hours wangabuyela kuthina saya siya eMayville siyohlasela uJomo Sibiya nomama noMusadube namanje basithembisa 2 weeks kobe seqala abantu bephuma emahall inyanga iphelile akaze kuphume umuntu ehall. So asazi kwenzakalani ukuthi sibone kungcono ukuthi siyolindela endaweni ephephile.
Oh, Lethiwe, it's just that the trauma is palpable. I mean, these people have gone through the worst kind of trauma just 4 months ago. The trauma then of having to provide shelter for themselves and their families with what's been provided for them, that wasn't good enough at the time, because hygiene is a massive issue as well, especially if you've got children involved. And then the trauma of having to make a life in this other space that they found that seemed to be better, and then that gets ripped apart as well. What happens next to this family? These families, because surely they need to get some kind of more sustainable plan for what can be provided for them going forward.
Well, Marcel, we've been trying to get answers from the government, especially the Human Settlements Department here in the province, because there were promises made. Back in June, we were actually told that 74 houses had been built, temporary housing units had been built, and some people would then be moved to these temporary housing units, but none of them have been moved. And basically what the victims are calling for are answers, and they are saying they need safe places where they can receive shelter that are not overcrowded while they wait for those answers. But moving forward, we do understand that the victims are working together with an organization called Umsinti, and they have been helping them with trying to fight Transnet. And we do understand that there's a court case currently, and on Friday they will be heading back to court, and the lawyers will be fighting for the victims to go back to the lodge that they had invaded last week, and they are going to be then hoping that they will go back to those lodges. But we also are hoping that we will get a response from the Human Settlements Department a bit later on. We're hoping to speak to the MEC where they can provide answers that these victims have been hoping for the past 4 months, where they will be answered as to when exactly they will be moved to safe homes.
Okay, and then we'll look forward to that update from you. Thank you so much for your time and for that insight. That's Lethiwe Mdluli reporting to us live there from Durban.